Jenna Martinez had dreamed of working at Innovate Tech Solutions since she graduated from college 3 years ago. The sleek downtown office with its exposed brick walls, standing desks, and ping-pong table represented everything she thought modern workplace should be. After months of networking events, portfolio reviews, and nerve-wracking interviews, she finally had the email she'd been waiting for. "We're thrilled to welcome you to the team." Her first day arrived with the crisp energy of early autumn. Jenna chose her outfit carefully professional but approachable, confident but not intimidating. She wanted to fit in with the company's casual culture while still making a strong first impression. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt like ascending to a new chapter of her life. "You must be Jenna." The voice belonged to a woman with auburn curls and an infectious smile who bounded over the moment Jenna stepped off the elevator. "I'm Bethany Walsh, and I am so excited to work with you. Welcome to the cosmos.No family." Bethany's enthusiasm was immediately apparent. She talked quickly, gestured wildly, and seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. As she led Jenna through the open office space, she provided running commentary on everything from the coffee machine's quirks to the office plant's individual personalities. "That's Trevor at the development station. He's brilliant, but lives entirely on energy drinks and spite. And over there is Diana from marketing. She looks scary, but she once cried watching a commercial about rescue puppies." Bethany's tour was equal parts informative and entertaining. Jenna's workstation sat in a cluster of 4 desks arranged in a square formation. "You'll be right here next to me," Bethany announced, patting the desk chair. "I specifically requested that the new hires sit close by so I could help them adjust. I've been here 2 years, so I know all the ins and outs." The morning passed smoothly as Jenna completed her onboarding paperwork and attended orientation sessions. Bethany proved to be a helpful guide, answering questions about the company's project management system and explaining the unwritten rules of office culture. She seemed genuinely invested in helping Jenna succeed, which felt refreshing after some of the more competitive environments Jenna had experienced. Around 10 o'clock, their supervisor Marcus Chen called for a brief team meeting. To discuss the week's priorities, a 4-person team gathered around Jenna's desk since it had the most space. Marcus, a soft-spoken man in his early 30s, began outlining the upcoming client deliverables. "So, we need to finalize the Morrison proposal by Wednesday. And the Peterson campaign needs its second draft by Friday," Marcus was saying when something completely unexpected happened, without any warning or preamble. Bethany simply sat down on Jenna's lap, not on the arm of her chair, not perched on the edge of the desk, directly on Jenna's lap, as if it were the most natural seating arrangement in the world. Jenna's body went rigid with shock. She felt Bethany's weight settle against her legs, felt the warmth of another person pressed against her in a way that was far too intimate for a professional setting. Her mind raced through possible explanations. Was this some kind of hazing ritual? A weird company tradition? Had Bethany mistaken her chair for something else? As I was saying, Marcus continued, apparently unbothered by the bizarre seating arrangement, we'll need all hands on deck for the Peterson project. Bethany nodded enthusiastically, completely at ease on her human chair. "Absolutely, Marcus. I think if we leverage the social media integration strategy we discussed last week, we can really make this campaign pop." She shifted slightly to pull out her notebook, adjusting her position on Jenna's lap, as if she were settling into a favorite armchair. Jenna sat frozen, unsure how to react. She caught Trevor's eye across the cluster of desks, and he gave her a look that seemed equal parts sympathetic and amused. Diana appeared to be studying her computer screen with unusual intensity. As if deliberately avoiding acknowledging what was happening, the meeting continued for another 10 minutes, with Bethany participating actively in the discussion while remaining seated on Jenna's lap. She took notes, asked questions, and even leaned forward to point at documents on the desk, all while treating Jenna like furniture. When Marcus finally wrapped up the meeting, Bethany stood up casually. "Great. Meeting everyone. Jenna, let me show you where we keep the client files." She walked away as if nothing unusual had occurred, leaving Jenna sitting there trying to process what had just happened. The rest of the morning passed normally. With Bethany maintaining appropriate professional distance, she answered Jenna's questions about the filing system, helped her navigate the company's software platforms, and shared useful tips about client communication preferences. Her behavior was so normal and helpful that Jenna began to wonder if she had imagined the lap-sitting incident. Maybe it had been an accident. Maybe Bethany had been distracted and hadn't realized where she was sitting. Maybe it was just one of those awkward moments that happen when people don't know each other well yet. Jenna decided to give Bethany the benefit of the doubt. After all, she seemed genuinely nice and was clearly trying to be welcoming. As lunchtime approached, Jenna felt cautiously optimistic about her new job. The work was interesting. Her colleagues seemed friendly, despite the morning's strange incident. She felt like she could learn a lot from Bethany's experience and expertise. She had no idea that tomorrow would bring a repeat performance that would make her question everything she thought she understood about normal workplace behavior. Bethany Walsh had always been a people person. From her perspective, she was simply being friendly and welcoming to the new team member. When she woke up Tuesday morning, she felt excited about another day of mentoring Jenna and helping her integrate into the Innovate tech family. The company prided itself on being informal and collaborative, and Bethany saw herself as the perfect ambassador for that culture. She arrived at the office with her usual energy, carrying her oversized coffee cup and mentally planning the day ahead. Jenna was already at her desk, looking focused and professional as she reviewed client notes. Bethany felt a warm surge of approval. She loved working with dedicated people. "Morning, superstar," Bethany called out cheerfully. "Ready for another exciting day in the trenches?" Jenna looked up with a smile that seemed slightly forced, but Bethany attributed that to new job nerves. Everyone was a little tense during their first week. Without giving it a second thought, Bethany walked over and settled herself comfortably on Jenna's lap. Just as she had during yesterday's meeting, from Bethany's perspective, this felt completely natural. She had grown up in a physically affectionate family where casual contact was normal and comforting. Her college friends had been huggers and lap-sitters, and her previous workplace had been filled with people who shared her relaxed attitude toward personal space. She genuinely didn't understand that what felt friendly to her might feel invasive to others. "So I was thinking," Bethany continued, making herself comfortable while reaching for Jenna's keyboard, "we should tackle the Morrison proposal together today. I can show you some of the advanced features in our presentation software that they don't teach in the official training." She felt Jenna's body tense beneath her, but interpreted it as concentration rather than discomfort. Bethany had always been focused on her own thoughts and feelings, assuming others shared her perspective. She began typing on Jenna's computer, pulling up client files and explaining her organizational system. "The key with Morrison Industries is that they love data visualization," Bethany explained enthusiastically, scrolling through documents while settled on Jenna's lap. "Their CEO is super visual, so if we can create some really compelling charts and infographics, we're golden." Trevor walked by and did a double take at the scene, shaking his head with what Bethany assumed was amusement at her unconventional working style. She waved at him cheerfully, completely missing the concern in his expression. Over the next hour, Bethany made herself at home on Jenna's lap. She answered phone calls, ate her breakfast pastry, and even conducted a brief video chat with a vendor. To her, this felt like efficient collaboration. She was sharing workspace and expertise simultaneously. The fact that her workspace was another human being didn't register as problematic in her mind. "You're such a good sport," Bethany commented during a lull between tasks. "Some people are so uptight about personal space, but you really get the collaborative spirit we have here." When Marcus approached their desk cluster for an impromptu check-in, Bethany remained seated on Jenna's lap throughout the entire conversation. She participated actively in the discussion about project timelines, occasionally shifting her weight or adjusting her position, but never considering that her seating choice might be inappropriate. "Bethany, maybe you could," Marcus began hesitantly. But Bethany cut him off with enthusiasm. "Oh, absolutely, Marcus. Jenna and I have been brainstorming some fantastic ideas. She's really catching on quickly." She patted Jenna's shoulder affectionately, still not recognizing the frozen expression on her human chair's face. The pattern continued throughout the week. Each morning, Bethany would arrive and immediately claim her favorite seat, Jenna's lap. She began bringing more of her work materials to Jenna's desk, creating what she saw as an efficient shared workspace. Her laptop, notebooks, coffee cup, and personal items gradually migrated to Jenna's area. By Friday, Bethany had developed a complete routine. She would sit on Jenna's lap for her morning email check, stay there during phone calls, and return. Throughout the day, whenever she needed to collaborate on projects, she even began eating lunch at Jenna's desk, remaining seated on her lap while discussing weekend plans and sharing office gossip. From Bethany's perspective, she was building a wonderful mentoring relationship. She felt like she was really helping Jenna adjust to the company culture, and she interpreted Jenna's quiet responses as shy gratitude rather than discomfort. Bethany had always been talkative and physical in her friendships, and she assumed everyone appreciated her warm, inclusive approach. Diana from marketing finally pulled Bethany aside during a coffee break. "Bethany, don't you think you're getting a little close to Jenna? She seems uncomfortable." Bethany laughed, genuinely confused. "Uncomfortable? But she's so sweet and accommodating. We're like workplace besties already. I think she really appreciates having someone to show her the ropes." Diana stared at her for a moment, then simply shook her head and walked away. That afternoon, Bethany settled onto Jenna's lap for their usual end-of-day wrap-up session, completely oblivious to the fact that her workplace bestie was planning to spend the weekend figuring out how to escape this increasingly unbearable situation. In Bethany's mind, she was simply being the kind of welcoming, collaborative colleague she wished she'd had during her own first week. Her definition of friendship was becoming Jenna's definition of workplace harassment. Marcus Chen had been managing teams for 5 years, but he had never encountered a situation quite like this one. As he watched Bethany settle onto Jenna's lap for what seemed like the 100th time that week, he felt a familiar knot of anxiety forming in his stomach. He knew he needed to address the situation, but the very uniqueness of the problem left him uncertain about the appropriate response. During his management training, they had covered harassment, discrimination, and inappropriate workplace behavior. But somehow, employee uses colleague as furniture hadn't been on the curriculum. Marcus found himself second-guessing his instincts. Was this actually problematic, or was he being overly sensitive? The company culture emphasized informality and collaboration. Maybe this was just Bethany's interpretation of those values. He decided to observe the situation more carefully before taking action. What he saw over the next few days alarmed him. More than he had expected, Jenna's work performance, which had been impressive during her first week, began to decline noticeably. She seemed distracted during meetings, jumpy when people approached her desk, and increasingly reluctant to participate in team discussions. Marcus noticed she had started arriving earlier and staying later, as if trying to avoid peak office hours. Meanwhile, Bethany's behavior was escalating. She no longer limited her lap-sitting to their immediate desk area. During a client presentation, in the conference room, Bethany had casually sat on Jenna's lap while they reviewed slides, apparently oblivious to the bewildered looks from the clients. In the break room, she would plop down on Jenna's lap while they waited for the microwave, chatting away as if this were completely normal social behavior. The other team members were beginning to react in ways that concerned Marcus. Trevor had started making jokes about Bethany's favorite chair, which seemed to embarrass Jenna further. Diana had taken to warning new employees about Bethany's quirky personality in hushed tones. The office atmosphere was becoming tense and gossip-filled. Marcus tried addressing the issue indirectly. During team meetings, he made general comments about maintaining professionalism and respecting personal boundaries. He suggested that everyone be mindful of their colleagues' comfort levels and remember that what felt normal to one person might feel inappropriate to another. Bethany nodded along with these discussions enthusiastically, seemingly unaware that the comments were directed at her behavior. After one particularly pointed speech about workplace boundaries, she cornered Marcus to agree wholeheartedly. "You're so right, Marcus. Some people can be really uptight about silly things." I'm just glad we have team members like Jenna who understand that we're all family here. She gestured toward Jenna, who was pretending to be deeply absorbed in her computer screen. Marcus's attempts at subtle intervention were clearly failing. He considered having a direct conversation with Bethany, but worried about creating workplace drama or making Jenna's situation worse. What if Bethany became defensive or retaliated in some way? What if he was overreacting to behavior that was merely annoying rather than harmful? The breaking point came during a video call with their biggest client. Marcus was presenting quarterly results when he noticed movement in the background of the call. Bethany had wandered over to Jenna's desk, and without any apparent consideration for the fact that they were in a professional meeting, sat down on Jenna's lap directly in view of the camera. The client stopped mid-sentence, clearly confused by what they were seeing. "I'm sorry, is everything all right there? It looks like your employee is okay?" Marcus felt his face burning with embarrassment as he tried to redirect the conversation back to business matters. He could see Jenna's mortified expression on the screen while Bethany remained completely oblivious to the awkwardness she had created. The call ended 15 minutes earlier than planned, the client making vague excuses about needing to attend another meeting. After ending the video call, Marcus sat in stunned silence for several minutes. This wasn't just about office dynamics anymore. Bethany's behavior was actively damaging their professional relationships and potentially costing them business. He looked across the office to see Jenna sitting rigidly at her desk with Bethany still perched on her lap, apparently discussing lunch plans. Jenna's face was pale, and her hands were clenched in her lap. For the first time, Marcus truly understood that this wasn't just awkward or unprofessional, it was genuinely distressing for Jenna. That afternoon, Marcus made two decisions. First, he would have a direct conversation with Bethany about appropriate workplace behavior, regardless of how uncomfortable it might be. Second, he would reach out to Rachel Torres in Human Resources for guidance on how to handle the situation properly. As he watched Jenna pack up her things at the end of the day, moving quickly as if eager to escape, Marcus realized he should have acted sooner. His hesitation and hope that the problem would resolve itself had allowed the situation to escalate beyond simple awkwardness into something that was clearly affecting an employee's well-being and job performance. He made a note to schedule meetings with both Bethany and Rachel first thing Monday morning. The situation had gone on long enough, and it was time for management to step in with clear boundaries and consequences. Marcus just hoped it wasn't too late to repair the damage that had already been done to team dynamics and Jenna's sense of safety at work. Jenna Martinez stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror Monday morning, practicing what she might say if Bethany sat on her lap again today. "Bethany, I need some personal space." Too weak. "This makes me uncomfortable." Too accusatory. "Could you please sit in your own chair?" Too obvious. Nothing sounded right. Every phrase felt either too confrontational or too passive. She had spent the entire weekend researching workplace harassment policies and rehearsing conversations. That felt impossible to have. How do you tell someone to stop treating you like furniture without sounding ridiculous? She arrived at the office with a new strategy. Keep moving. If she wasn't sitting at her desk, Bethany couldn't sit on her lap. Jenna planned to spend the morning in meetings at the printer or anywhere else that would keep her mobile and unavailable as human seating. The plan worked for exactly 37 minutes. Jenna was in the small conference room having a phone call with a potential new client when Bethany appeared in the doorway. Without knocking or waiting for acknowledgement, Bethany walked into the room and sat down directly on Jenna's lap while she was mid-sentence with the client. "Mr. Rodriguez, I think our innovative approach to social media integration would be perfect for your campaign," Jenna was saying when suddenly she felt Bethany's familiar weight settling onto her legs. "Oh, are you talking to Rodriguez Marketing?" Bethany whispered loudly enough to be heard through the phone. "I love their work. Tell them I said hello." Jenna tried to maintain her professional composure while a colleague sat on her during a business call. "As I was saying, Mr. Rodriguez, we have extensive experience with campaigns similar to what you're envisioning, ... Bethany made herself comfortable, pulling out her own phone and beginning to scroll through emails while perched on Jenna's lap. Occasionally, she would lean over to grab a pen from the conference table or adjust her position, completely oblivious to how her movements were affecting Jenna's ability to concentrate on the call. The conversation with Mr. Rodriguez became increasingly strained. Jenna could hear confusion in his voice as background noise and movement disrupted their discussion. When Bethany answered her own phone and began having a separate conversation while still sitting on Jenna's lap, the potential client finally cut the call short. "Ms. Martinez, I think we may need to reconsider whether your company is the right fit for our needs. Perhaps we can revisit this conversation when you have fewer ... distractions." The line went dead. Jenna sat there holding the phone, feeling a mixture of humiliation and rage that she had never experienced before. This wasn't just about personal comfort anymore. Bethany's behavior was actively sabotaging her career. "Ooh, that sounded like it didn't go well," Bethany commented sympathetically, still seated on Jenna's lap. "Rodriguez can be tricky to work with. Don't take it personally. You'll get better at handling difficult clients with more experience." Something inside Jenna finally snapped. "Get off me." The words came out louder and sharper than she had intended. Bethany looked genuinely startled. "What?" "I said get off me. Right now." Jenna's voice was shaking with months of suppressed frustration. "Jenna, what's wrong? Are you feeling okay?"
What's
"Wrong?" Jenna stood up abruptly, causing Bethany to slide off her lap and nearly fall. "What's wrong is that you have been sitting on me like I'm a piece of furniture for weeks and I can't take it anymore." The conference room door was open, and Jenna's raised voice carried across the office. She could see heads turning in their direction, but she no longer cared about making a scene. "I am not your personal chair," Jenna continued, her voice getting louder with each word. "I am a human being with personal boundaries that you have been completely ignoring every single day. Since I started working here." Bethany's face showed genuine confusion and hurt. "But Jenna, I was just being friendly. I thought we were becoming close. Didn't realize you didn't realize because you never asked. You never considered that maybe I don't want someone sitting on me during business calls or while I'm trying to work or ever. This is completely inappropriate and unprofessional, and I should have said something weeks ago." The office had gone completely quiet. Trevor was standing frozen by the coffee machine. Diana was staring with her mouth open, and Marcus was hurrying over from his office, looking alarmed. "Jenna, let's take a step back," Marcus began, but Jenna was beyond diplomatic solutions. "Marcus, I'm done taking steps back. I'm done being accommodating and understanding. I'm done pretending that having someone use me as furniture is normal workplace behavior." Tears of frustration were starting to form in her eyes, which made her even angrier. Bethany looked genuinely devastated. "I had no idea you felt this way. I thought we were friends. I was just trying to be welcoming and include you in everything. Friends don't sit on each other without permission during business calls." Jenna shot back. "Friends don't treat each other like objects." The confrontation had attracted attention from other departments. People were gathering in doorways and peering over cubicle walls to see what was happening. The professional, collaborative atmosphere that Jenna had initially found so appealing now felt like a fishbowl where her humiliation was on display for everyone. Marcus stepped between them, his face red with embarrassment and concern. "Both of you, let's move this conversation to my office right now." But Jenna was already gathering her things. "I need some air. I'll be back this afternoon to finish my projects, but I'm taking the morning to think about whether I can continue working." In an environment where this kind of behavior is tolerated, she walked out of the conference room and past the staring faces of her colleagues, feeling simultaneously liberated and mortified. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she had her voice back. But she wondered if finding it had cost her the job she had worked so hard to get. Rachel Torres had been InnovateX HR director for 3 years. She prided herself on creating solutions for complex workplace issues. When Marcus called her emergency meeting about the lap-sitting situation, she initially thought he was joking. By the time he finished explaining the events of Monday morning, Rachel realized this was one of the most unusual cases she had ever encountered. Her first priority was damage control. The public confrontation had created a spectacle that was already becoming office legend, and she needed to address the situation before it spiraled into larger workplace dysfunction. She spent Tuesday morning conducting individual meetings with everyone involved. Jenna arrived at Rachel's office looking exhausted and defensive. "I know I shouldn't have lost my temper publicly, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I felt like I was going crazy being the only person who thought the situation was inappropriate." "You weren't the only person who thought it was inappropriate," Rachel assured her. Multiple colleagues expressed concern, but everyone was unsure how to address such an unusual situation. "That's a failure on our part as management, not yours as an employee." Rachel's conversation with Bethany was more complicated. Bethany was genuinely distraught about the confrontation and seemed to truly not understand why her behavior had been problematic. "I grew up in a family where physical affection was normal," Bethany explained tearfully. "My college friends were always hugging and sitting together. My last job was so formal and cold I thought this place was different. I thought people here would appreciate friendliness and closeness." "There's a difference between friendliness and physical boundary violations," Rachel explained gently. "Intent matters, but impact matters more. Even if you meant to be welcoming, the impact on Jenna was that she felt uncomfortable and unable to do her job effectively." Rachel spent the rest of the week developing a comprehensive response plan. She researched workplace boundary training programs, consulted with employment lawyers about policy updates, and designed a mediation process that could address the immediate conflict while preventing similar issues in the future. The following Monday, Rachel implemented her plan. She started with mandatory workplace respect training for the entire company, focusing on personal boundaries, consent, and professional behavior. The training used scenarios and role-playing exercises to help employees understand different perspectives on appropriate workplace interaction. Bethany was required to attend additional counseling sessions with the company's employee assistance program. The counselor helped her understand how her well-intentioned behavior had been perceived by others and gave her tools for reading social cues and respecting boundaries. "I never realized that my comfort level might be different from other people's," Bethany told Rachel after her third counseling session. "I always assumed that if someone didn't say no directly, they were okay with whatever was happening. I'm learning that silence doesn't equal consent." Meanwhile, Rachel worked with Jenna to rebuild her confidence and sense of safety at work. "You have every right to advocate for your own comfort and professional needs," Rachel told her. "Part of our job is creating an environment where you feel empowered to speak up before situations reach a breaking point." The mediation session between Jenna and Bethany was emotional but productive. Bethany offered a sincere apology that went beyond excuses to acknowledge the specific ways her behavior had impacted Jenna's work and well-being. "I'm sorry I made you feel like an object instead of a colleague," Bethany said. "I'm sorry I ignored your body language and subtle signals. I'm sorry I damaged your client relationships and made you dread coming to work." Jenna, for her part, acknowledged that she could have spoken up sooner, but explained why the situation had felt so difficult to address. "It's hard to tell someone to stop being friendly, even when their friendliness crosses lines. I kept second-guessing myself and wondering if I was being too sensitive." Rachel used their situation as a catalyst for broader workplace policy changes. She updated the employee handbook to include clear guidelines about physical contact, personal space, and consent in professional settings. She established an anonymous reporting system for employees who felt uncomfortable addressing boundary issues directly. 6 months later, the office had developed a healthier culture around personal boundaries. Bethany had learned to channel her enthusiasm into verbal encouragement and collaborative work practices that didn't involve physical contact. She became a mentor who was supportive without being invasive, and her genuine care for her colleagues found appropriate expression through her words and professional actions. Jenna had found her voice as an advocate for herself and others. She joined the company's newly formed Workplace Culture Committee and helped design training programs that addressed consent and communication in professional settings. Her experience, while initially traumatic, had given her insights that benefited the entire organization. The incident became a turning point for Innovatix's culture. The company maintained its informal, collaborative atmosphere while establishing clear boundaries that helped everyone feel safe and respected. Rachel often used their story with permission in HR conferences as an example of how good intentions without awareness can create hostile work environments, and how proper intervention can transform conflict into positive change. Marcus learned to trust his management instincts and address unusual situations promptly rather than hoping they would resolve themselves. The experience taught him that waiting for problems to escalate rarely leads to better outcomes. Most importantly, the entire team learned that creating an inclusive, friendly workplace required ongoing communication, mutual respect, and the willingness to have difficult conversations when boundaries were crossed. The lap-sitting incident became part of company lore not as a joke, but as a reminder that workplace culture requires constant attention and care from everyone involved.